I'm here. I'm here. It has been a complete month since I have last shared the books I've read. This month, I read a lot of books. I think this is the most books I've actually read in a month. And I am proud of myself. I've read 13 books. 4 physical and 11. Oh, let me switch them. 4 on Kindle and 11 physical books. That's what I meant to say. I also read around 5,500 pages, which is insane because I've actually been graphing my page numbers for over the last since April at least in this case. And this has been my highest reading month. Also the most amount of pages, if you can tell. The other books that I've read on Kindle are like this big. So a lot of pages. It's crazy. I never thought that I could read that much in a month. To be honest, I could have read more. And I realized some days I'm just not, I don't have the energy to read. My job's draining. So the fact that I was able to read this much and not read every day is pretty cool. But yes, I want to share with you what I read this month. And I had some good books. I had some books. There's some series I'm not gonna continue. I'm gonna wrap it up. I'm gonna wrap up the month of October with some good stuff. I'm gonna take down these books. Hopefully it doesn't fall. Okay, so I am not doing these books in an order. In case, and this is the drink of the day. It's a iced coffee, iced latte. I've been on my latte kick. Like normally in the mornings, I'm a hot coffee type of person. I've been drinking hot iced coffee in the morning. It's been so refreshing and it wakes me up more than the hot coffee, which is not normal. But yes, let's get started. So It Ends This Month by Colin Cooper. This is the second book in the It Ends With Us duology. It starts with us actually. This follows the aftermath after Lily has her child. In case I don't know how much is too much for spoiling this book, but book 1 is it's an abusive relationship that the female lead character is in with her husband now, in this book, her ex-husband. But you're seeing the side of her friend that she ends up falling in love with, Atlas. And you hear a lot more from his side of the story that you did not hear You do not hear much of his side of the story in It Ends With Us. You get that in here. Did I fall more in love with Atlas? Maybe. It was a good book. I rate this 4 stars, a low 4 though. I think it's better than the first one, my opinion. Would I recommend reading this book? If you haven't read the first one, and you don't plan on it, probably skip this book. But it's not too bad. This is my second book by Colin Hoover that I've read. I did pick up Verity because somebody recommended it to me as well. So we'll see how that goes. I don't know if I'm gonna get to Verity for the month of November, but this was pretty decent. It's a maybe for me with this book. Definitely. We got The Bookstore on the Corner by Jenny Colligan. This follows a literature matchmaker. So this girl is a librarian, and what she does is she matches books to people's personalities, and she's pretty spot on, which is amazing. So she ends up losing her job, and she decides to follow her dreams with getting her own mobile bookstore. She moves to a small town in the middle of nowhere that does not have a library, and she ends up changing the people in that town's lives, and there's a little romance that happens as well. I came into this book completely blind. I've had this book on my TBR for a good while, a long while. I actually never bought this book physically. I found it, and I was like, maybe I'd enjoy it. This is a 5-star for me. This is an amazing literary fiction, and I'm calling it literary fiction. People can throw hands if they don't think it is. I don't think it's a romance because, to be honest, you're not following the romance of the main character. You're following her journey as she is embarking in this new journey in her life, as moving from a stable job to an unstable job, moving from a librarian to I'm gonna get my own van and renovate it into a cute mobile bookshop. And you get to see that journey, and I fell in love with it because I connected so much with the main character. I realized that when I connect with the main character, the book has a higher chance at being a 5-star for me, and that was this one. I enjoyed it. I loved it. It was one of my top books of this year, and mostly because it took me by surprise. I would read more books by this lady. Her writing style is pretty decent for me. And I enjoyed it. There is no spice in this book. It is really sweet. I love it. So that's this book. Ooh, this one's amazing. This is Daydream by Hannah Grace. This is surprising for me to like this book, mostly because I don't like books with a lot of spice, and she is known for her spice. I tell you that from Icebreaker and Wildfire, which is why I never read those 2 books. I found this person on TikTok, and they said that they enjoyed this book, and we tend to have very similar reading taste. And I tried it, and I enjoyed it. I connected so much with both the male and female characters that I did not expect to happen. I did a reading vlog on this. Not a reading vlog, but I did a reading wrap up on this. I explained my feelings on this. This is definitely a 5-star, up there on my top reads of the year. I want to say I recommend this book to a lot of people, but it's a certain palate taste. It's really hard to recommend this book, but I enjoyed it, and it's a 5-star to me. I got this one, In Search of a Prince by Tony Shiloh. So this follows a princess that doesn't know she's a princess. Her mom hid it from her when she was born, and her dad is the guy that he's the prince, but he ended up dying when she was young. But there's a disjointedness in the dad's side of the family. So the grandfather is dying, and they call saying like, we need somebody to go on the throne. I read this on the audiobook. I'm glad I read this on the audiobook. It's really good. I don't know if I could have read it in the print. And I don't know why. I don't know why. But it was so great to hear the accents of the people, because this is like they're from the country of Olole. Olole. Yes. Okay. Olole. That's the country that they're rulers of in this book. And you're kind of following her story from finding out that like she's a princess to being on the throne and what restrictions she has. And it was pretty good. And I'm gonna rate this a high 3. I could recommend this book. There is no spice in this book at all. It is a Christian romance as well. And it's the one thing I give this book props for. You're reading it and it doesn't feel like a Christian romance. There's some books that you read and you like, it feel like it's a Christian romance by the dialogue. This feels so natural, so normal. No matter what, this is probably one of the less forced Christian romances I've read and enjoyed. The next one probably would be Beautiful Lies by Felicity Elaine, and that's just because it's a Christian dark romance. So I enjoyed this. It was all right. High 3 stars, definitely. Hannah Bowman Young writes Out on the Limb. I bought this in a Target sale recently, and it was one of those books that I immediately got it and I immediately bought it and read it. This is a romance, in case you didn't know. It has an accidental pregnancy trope between the girl named Wynn and the guy's name is Bo. See, look, I gotta look up the names just to make sure. It's the one night stand, which this is not a trope that I ever tend to read or enjoy reading at all. I really enjoyed this book. I read this book 4 stars. It had 4 spice scenes on them. The most of it, it's hard to say this is a slow burn because you have 2 spice scenes at the beginning of the book and then you have 2 spice scenes at the end of the book. So, as I said, it's not awful. The content is pretty neutral, but in this case, it's an accidental pregnancy trope. The male character is I was about to say paraplegic. He's not paraplegic. He just has a missing leg. He's an amputee. And the girl is just I want to say she's just your typical girl. But you're following the romance between the 2. Very simple, very wholesome. Rate this low 4 stars. It's not bad. Not bad. I could recommend this book to somebody. I actually bought another book by her called Next to Kin. I'm excited to read that one, but this one's pretty good. Oh, okay, we're here. We're here with Once Upon a Broken Heart. I'm so torn with these series because I read the first 2 books in the series this month, and I'm not gonna lie, I was about to DNF the whole series. If this book did not come and like win me over, I would have DNF'd the series. I don't know what it is, but everyone loves these series, and I don't know. Everyone's like was rating it 5 stars, and I maybe have given my hopes up a little bit coming into this reading this book. I enjoyed it, but like this is a 3-star for me, which is crazy to think. This is 3. This is definitely a low 4 stars, and I think this might be a low 4-star series depending on how the last book goes. I'm definitely going to do a review on the series when I finish, mostly because I don't really know how I feel about it right now, about this series. It's whimsical. It follows, I don't even know what to look like. That's why I'm still so confused, because it is definitely a fantasy book, and it's not fantasy. It's a romantasy. Heavy on the romance, little on the fantasy. That's what I think threw me off on it, because like typically if I have something that's really high fantasy and a romance subplot, I pretty much enjoy it to its teeth. But people keep saying like the magic system is whimsical, it's cute. It's whimsical, but it's not, like, it's really hard for me to look at this as a fantasy. And then the thing with the series is I thought it was like YA. This is a YA. I don't agree it's YA. As of right now, out of the book, like all the books were written to adults, but this is a YA series. It's not YA, and it was disappointing for like on the publisher's standpoint, not on the author, but because I realized we're in a season where kids, people under 18, are not reading as much, and adults are reading. So right now, the only books that are really made, or the only books that authors are making to readers, are for adults specifically. So I was discouraged, because if I didn't read this, I would think, oh my gosh, I could recommend this to a 13-year-old. No, I wouldn't. I don't know. I wouldn't. That was a discouraging part, but I still think it's pretty decent. Like this one, I know 3 stars. It wasn't as good. This one is definitely 4 stars. But the one thing I'm gonna try, and I need to do this, to give this series a try, because I told myself, well, I'm not going to read the other ones before I read this one, because who's going to commit to 3 extra books? I might have to read the Caraval series to see if that changes my opinions on these books, because I feel like I didn't give the whole series a chance, because I didn't feel connected to the characters. So I feel like maybe if I read the Caraval series, I would feel more connected. I hope that's the case. That I'm gonna do a whole, like, I want to say double trilogy review on this when I finish it. I hope to finish all of them by the end of the year, so I completely finish this series and kind of feel like get my feelings of the book. But this wasn't that bad. I have my thoughts. I definitely do. So that's with these 2. Here's another fantasy I read, Belladonna. It was actually pretty sweet. 4 stars, low 4. It wasn't too bad. I will read the second one. I did buy it a little bit right after. Hopefully I get through both of those series before the end of the year. The only problem that I hate is that these books are not in the same, like, what's the word I want to use? They're not all in paperback, and I kind of want them all in paperback. And the 3rd book is not, so I might read that on my Kindle and wait for it to come into paperback, because I was on the fence about this book, and I'm so glad I just bought this while it was on sale, and I didn't care about the spines, because if I really don't enjoy it, these probably will be the first series to go, because I'm trying to only keep books that I like thoroughly enjoy and want to recommend. But this one here, it's pretty cute. I'm not gonna lie. When it comes to Belladonna, really and truly, you have a female character named Signa. I was about to say Sigma. No, Signa. And she kind of has death following her. So she's very wealthy, and she gets passed around from family to family, because those who take care of her while she was younger, they end up having a lump sum of money that gets given to them every month. And so they never really wanted her. They just wanted her money. So what happened in this case is that she would move around to different families because they would end up dying. And they treated her like crap. So her last family she went to was like her uncle, right? and she ends up running into the person that follows her all the time that she ends up growing to hate, called Death. Death is a person, but Death is also the being that controls Death. Try not to make it sound, everyone sounds like people sound stupid, but it's really cool because there's a romance that's happening in the story as well, and there's a huge fantasy plot, and it's just how this is heavy on the romance. I feel like this is heavy on the fantasy because you don't really understand the romance part of it till the very end, but the fantasy part, pretty good. It's a really cool world. I really enjoyed it. This is also a book that does not have a lot of spice in it. So I said before that like this isn't made for adults. There's no explicit scenes in it, but there's no explicit scenes. But I don't think it's made for kids. But this one as well, there's no explicit scenes, but it's not as bad as Once Upon a Broken Heart. I'm gonna be honest. But this is only the first book, so I don't know what the other books are like. It left on like a cliffhanger, definitely. I need to read it fast, just so that I remember the whole plot and what's happening. So I might read the second book this month, the second and third book this month, so I can finish it up. But Belladonna was pretty good. I don't want to tell too much about it because I liked going into it blind, and there's not really much to tell without spoiling it. So that's Belladonna. This is my last book. Is it my last book I got? It's not my last book. Where am I? Here we go. We got Keeping 13. Keeping 13 is the second book in the Boys of Tomlin series. We have finished the story of Johnny and Shannon. It wasn't that bad. I enjoy this series. This series right now, the best way I'd call it is, I don't want to say trash, but it's like reality TV show where like the stuff inside, it's not pristine literature, but it's pretty good, like the stuff inside of it. So I can't really tell you much about it because it's a continuation of the book. You're just following the romance between Johnny and Shannon. There was a cliffhanger in the end of the first book, so I finished it. It took me forever to read it. The problem with this series is that it's so freaking long. Like, let's see. It is like 650 pages, but this font is insanely small. So like, no matter what, I felt like I was reading this book for a very long time. And I had to stop it, put it back up, put it back down, stop it, put it back down, the whole 9 yards. So these are all my physical books I've read. Now we're getting into the books I read on my Kindle. I read 4 books on my Kindle. The first book that I read is A Deal with the Elf King. Ooh, it was so good. I didn't think I would love it. I love this author's writing. I love this author's like take on this enemies to lovers romance. It was so good. I didn't think I would enjoy it that much, honestly. But this book had no spice scenes in it. It wasn't really explicit either. Let's see what else I can tell you about this book. Really and truly, it's a marriage of convenience that has to happen between the Elf King and the I guess you would say the human that they take every couple of years from a village. Nobody wants to be the woman that possesses the power that keeps both countries, both worlds in harmony. So one of the female characters gets chosen. There's a marriage that has to happen between them, and they both don't want it. That's just the honest truth. They both don't want it, and you kind of see how they've grown to care for each other, love for each other, and then also figure out how to save both their worlds. Pretty cool. It's a really short read. It's like 320 pages. I loved it. I read it in like a night. I think I read it Sunday. It was so good. It is a high 5 stars. This is definitely one of my top books because it has fantasy that's good amount of romance. There's no explicit scenes in it. I could recommend this to people and feel like confident that I'm giving them a good book. I would read more books with this, like in this author. Oh gosh, I would read more books from this author, and I can't wait to. I literally just read her a few days ago, so I enjoyed that. The next book that I read was My Dark Romeo. I'm gonna be honest, it could not have been as eventful. It was all right. It was a dark romance. I don't know what got me to reading a dark romance. I probably should have known myself to not read this book, knowing that I was not going to rate it very high. It was 3 stars. It wasn't bad, but it's a low 3 stars. I wouldn't recommend it. It also is explicit, pretty good amount of scenes. Not that much. I think there's like 3 or 4. But it was like 3 stars for me. I think that if it had probably less spice, I probably would have rated it a little bit higher. But it's just like your typical romance. There is nothing special, which I have realized I'm in that phase where I've read so many romances that I need something special. I need something different. And typically that happens with a fantasy romance. But with typical contemporary romances, something has to be in it that like tells me, oh right, this is a good book. Like this one, the fact that the female character was the oldest daughter, and then the guy was autistic and also had ADHD. Like I felt like I related all the way to these characters, but with this romance, it just felt like meh. Which is also why I probably won't read an Anna Hong book, but I did read one last month. But her books are books her books, and even the book like My Dark Romeo are books that you just read when you're just like really, I don't want to say you're really bored, but you just want like a Hallmark movie. That's what I think of when I think of those books. So low 3 stars. It wasn't awful, but it also wasn't great. Would I recommend it? No. Would it be on my top recommendations? No. That's what that. At this point, I'm at this point, I'm saving the best for last. Zodiac Academy. I started the Zodiac Academy last month. Best thing I ever did to myself. I binged the first 3 books. I had to give myself a break, definitely, because book 4 has over 600 pages. Book 5 nearly took me out. That had like 500 and something pages. It's like this on steroids, but far better. Like, I was cracking through, a lot of the books are about this size. So I was cracking through the first book, which is, The Awakening. The second book with his ruthless fae. And then the third book is The Reckoning. So I sped read through these first 3 books. Not gonna lie. I barely slept, probably. I enjoyed every last bit of it. But to get I have to tell you, I can't tell you a synopsis of each of the books, but I will tell you the synopsis of the series on a whole. So it follows these twin girls who is apparently an orphan. Well, they are orphans, so not apparently. So they are orphans. Their parents died when they were young, but the parents they thought that died were not their real parents. But also their real parents are dead. But they were kings and queens of like in this case, in the world that they're in, like Zodiac Academy. They were head leaders, but they're dead. They will come to take the throne. Those twin girls possess powers that the girls were in a not great situation. So they didn't have much of a choice but to lead to this new world that they didn't know. They don't know anybody in it. They don't know zip, zop, nada. So they get thrown into this academy, which is where they're supposed to house their powers, own their powers, find out what they are. And they're joining in with people that hate their guts. Because first, they didn't know they were alive. And they're now taking their place on the throne. So this is like a bully romance. And the bullying part comes from the other people, the other kids. They're not even kids, the other adults in this academy. There is I wanted to say a quartet, but there is 4 boys that are supposed to be next in line to lead these people. But the twins have come in, and to be honest, the twins should take their place over them. And they feel threatened because now these 2 females have decided to say that I want to take your throne. So you're following this like bully romance, but it's heavy on the slow burn, and it's like 20% romance, 80% fantasy, which is it's amazing. Because just when you think something's happening, like I'm always on like a whole whiplash with this series. So I enjoyed every last bit of it. This is the one thing I'll tell you about Zodiac Academy. If you don't enjoy the first book, you're probably not gonna like the rest of them. I would at least give 2 books, like give it 2 books before you like really see if it's something you enjoy. But if you don't care about the plot or care about the fantasy part of it, you're not going to enjoy it. Don't go in it for the romance. Don't, because you are going to be strongly discouraged and you're going to hate it. You're going to hate it. You're going to want to punch the imaginary characters. But I would recommend this series. I'm enjoying it. I want to buy all of them. But right now, I'm trying to free up some space on my bookshelf just so that I have space, because the series is a big one. It's a big one. It's like 12 or 15 books or something crazy like that. And they're not small. They're pretty thick. So that concludes all the books I've read actually for this month. Read 13 books, 5,500 pages, amazing. I had some 5-star reads, some 4-star reads, and I'm glad, honestly. I had a good month. I read some good books. I found some interest I liked. And I'm so glad I was able to share what I read. And to be honest, I'm ready for this next month. Next month, I got some new books. I got some fresh ideas of what I want to read. So I'm excited for this new month. So at this point, I am done. I got it. I have told you all that I've read in the month of October. Comment down below the books that you read in the month of October. I want to know, mostly because I'm curious. I'm always looking for new books, and I always say that when I'm telling myself I'm not going to buy new books, but it's great to see what people are reading. That's why I love Goodreads. So definitely share with me what books you are reading. I want to talk about them. I want to see what you guys are reading. But anyway, thank you guys for watching this video, and stay tuned for the next one. Bye.